Okay. Um, all right. So I'm going to get rolling just with everything. And this is, we kind of wanted to assemble this very quickly in response to, obviously, things have been moving very quickly with the College Board. They released a bunch of, they actually honestly kind of contradicted some of the question. Oh, they plan to scale the assessments. That's a really good question. There is, I think, some language about that on the College Board website, but I'd be interested to hear from some of the teachers too. But things are moving really quickly. Obviously, the College Board kind of came out and they said that students would have a choice, and then they came out with a bunch of guidelines and information on Friday. So our idea was that obviously this is, you guys want to get moving and get preparing for this as soon as possible. So we wanted just to kind of put something together, kind of informal, to answer any questions that people have about the test, kind of about the situation in general too. I know guys are taking multiple APs, but about the test. So my name is Rob Flynn. I'm on the leadership team for the Centercourt 360. I don't teach AP, but I work with a lot of teachers that do. Phil Schochet is to my left in the little window. He teaches AP Language and Comp, and Tom Bennett teaches AP Gov and has some experience with U.S. history as well. And I know Phil has some experience with AP Lit. So not like a totally comprehensive. I know some guys have some math and some science, so we definitely do have AP tutors for math and science available to you guys if that's something that you're looking for. But just so you guys understand their background and kind of where we're coming from. So I'm just going to present my screen real quick. All right, and just bear with me while I do this. Okay. All right. So again, Tom, Phil, and I will be kind of running the Q&A. You guys can throw in any questions that you want. So super informal, outside, beautiful day, and just to kind of give you an idea of, I think, some of the resources and some of the people that we have involved with the Centercourt program. So just the overview, and for some of the students, some of this may be very obvious, some may not. All right, cool. AP World, cool. So a couple of the things that we're seeing. So it's a 45-minute exam. So they boiled down a 2.5 hour multiple choice and free answer to a 45-minute, mostly FRQ exam. There is some for language. There are some speaking and listening, and there's some AP music theory, some speaking or some singing and listening. But most of the time it's 1 to 2 essays. So broken up over those 45 minutes. So it's either one 45-minute essay. I believe in history, it's the DBQ basically, but 5 documents instead of 7. And in classes like stat or psych, it's 2 essays. And so they're trying to sort of boil it down essay based, and they're handling the security mostly through the timing element of it. So most of the games are May 11 to 12. So there's been some idea about dates. All that information is up on the College Board right now. So if you want to sort of piece your schedule together and your study schedule, I would really recommend you start to do that and plan backwards if you're a student. The College Board has said colleges will give credit for it. In our experience, colleges, and what we've reached out to, that some colleges are sort of confirming that. So that seems to be something that is, is definitely a reason to take the exam and to go forward with your plans. So the College Board has made a lot of online resources available, especially through their YouTube page. They're starting to live stream classes. So that's definitely something to take a look at in terms of those are free resources. A lot of teachers make use of AP Classroom, which is kind of their new online portal. I know a lot of our teachers do that. I'm not sure if teachers in other schools use that as extensively as we do. But there's certainly a lot of things, as the student that you can lean on that are totally free and totally available to you. And I know our teachers use a lot of those. And I think a big part of this is kind of the open note open note element of it, especially for, some of the more content driven classes like history and psych and stat. And so how do you, open note? So how do you prepare? What does open note really mean? I think those are questions that, our teachers are 72 hours to prepare for, to wrap your head around an open note exam for AP. It's totally different format. So that's kind of what we wanted to just chat about today is like, what are people thinking about? What are some immediate reactions to that open note element? What are some recommendations that students have? What are some ideas that students have to prepare? I mean, a lot of you students are going to be, are really know the test very well, I'm sure as well. And then again, there's some speaking and listening components to it. And again, just for some exams. So this is what I'm kind of thinking about in terms of how to think about the exam. So obviously FRQ, the free response questions, smaller essay questions, thinking about like identifying what those are, right? So what exactly, like in the language and comp, they're telling you this is the, like this is the essay that's going to be it's going to be about this. It's going to be about like prose, or it's going to be about one thing or the other. So we can take a look at that. How do we deal with the open note element of it? And then how do you practice? So like, how do you prepare for these like really specific tasks? I think in some courses more than others have really super specific tasks or as they try to boil things down. So let's get really good at those things and eliminate, all the other fluff. So that's just kind of a brief overview. So now I'd just like to kind of open it up to Tom and Phil. Just like, obviously a lot has changed very quickly. Just like what was some of your first reaction or thinking, like when you heard about the new format for the test or some of the information on Friday? What's going on with you guys?
Yeah, okay, so I can go ahead and start. Obviously it's extremely challenging for my kids. It's extremely daunting as well. The one thing that they're sort of nervous about is we've learned 6 months of content through 3 units, and now it's all summed down to about 40 minutes. And really a question and a half. They say it's 2 questions, but it's a question and a half. So this week, we're tailoring all of our classes to sort of identifying the key and sort of the key concepts and all of like the big overarching topics, and what, like identifying what is the best note-taking sample in order for them to succeed. That's where we're starting. And we had sort of this Q&A session. I had a Q&A session today with my students as well, and they're sort of comfortable with that. But I mean, it's challenging because the room for error is extremely low. Instead of having 4 opportunities and, a bunch of multiple choice questions, now the test is sort of like, this 1.5 question test, where we're not really sure, what is on it and what isn't, cause it encompasses about 8 units total.
Yeah. So it's like immediate, you're dealing with like the stress factor of the kids, and them obviously want to put their best foot forward and all that, right?
Cool. Absolutely.
Yeah. What about you, Phil?
So I teach AP language and composition to sophomores at Delbarton, but I reached out today to talk to some of the other English AP teachers, senior AP literature teachers, and junior AP Lang teachers. And for AP language and composition, the change is actually not very daunting for our guys. So like AP Lang is, and the English APs in general, I think are a little bit different, but particularly AP Lang is a writing skills based course. And so typically the multiple choice is the most difficult part for students. It's what a lot of AP Lang teachers say separates the highest scores on the exam from the lower scores. And this year, the AP, the College Board actually developed a new rubric for to make the writing even more of an objective evaluation, or that was their attempt. And so of the three types of essays that students usually write, if you're taking AP Lang, you're only writing the rhetorical analysis essay right now, which is the kind of essay that most students, English students, by the time they're a sophomore, a junior, or a senior, have the most experience practicing. And so my students are, I rightfully so, I think pretty confident that this is something that they have the most training in. And so all we're doing now is trying to use the time we have between now and the test to practice how to organize our time writing this 45 minute. I mean, 45 minutes isn't a lot of time to analyze a piece of writing and write about it, even if it is easier to analyze a piece of writing and write about it than it is to do one of the other two types of essays that students usually do on rhetorical analysis, and that is synthesis, where they read a number of different texts and then need to try to combine them into a research-like argument, or the open-ended argument essay. English students have been analyzing literature and pieces of writing for a long time before they get into an AP class. So if you're taking it, you should be confident that this is something that you have a lot of practice in. And the only thing to practice now is how to budget your time.
Right. And
going along with one of your questions, Rob, about on game day, like how to organize.
Right.
I mean, it's really, I think, practicing writing at the desk, you're going to take the exam, and
right.
we can talk about some of that stuff
right.
later, but
yeah. No, so you mentioned time. So I'm curious, like, and this might be fluid for you guys too, but just so now, it's April 6th, right? So, the exams are in mid-May. Kind of how are you thinking about, and maybe for people too don't have, you're in different schools, like how are you thinking about just structuring the rest of the time that you guys have in these online environments? Like what kind of activities you're going to do? Like, I know it's hard in some of the remote learning, but so like, how do you prioritize a little bit with some of this stuff? What do you think? Tom, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So just to touch on a little bit of what Phil said, I think the first FRQ question, FRQ4 for the AP US government exam, is a little bit more dynamic than what the kids are used to. Historically, the FRQ questions are satisfy the answer and then move on, because it's sort of like about speed when you're trying to answer 4 FRQs in an hour and 40 minutes.
Right.
But now the pieces that they want are more analytical. So in addition to offering sort of that like lower level learning concepts where you're describing and offering an explanation of something, they're asking you to provide context and also to evaluate certain key topics that are part of the FRQ. So, I mean, that's a lot to ask a student, in the span of about 25 minutes and 15 minutes for the second question. So like I said, I think that the key here is effective note-taking, and also this is a me job, I think, to analyze the past, maybe decade of exams,
right,
and highlight what is the common theme among them. Because I know in particular, questions about Congress, questions about the president appeared on every single one of those exams. So I think that that's one trick that I can sort of utilize and use that as sort of like a starting point. Like, look, these are things that showed up that are consistent within the past 10 years of exams.
Yep.
So let's start here and sort of span out.
Yeah. It's almost like that AP. I don't know if you've ever seen the AP lit list, where it basically is like, I know, Phil, you've probably seen it, where, because that's very driven by how many about, like, they're asking you a specific passage from an author. And I think like Shakespeare is like number one usually on that list. And then it kind of goes down. Toni Morrison's really high. And so a lot of people obviously build their AP curriculum around that. But I'm also wondering about like AP US, and you got one DBQ, right. Like, well, let's look at the last 15 DBQs and be like, well, where, what do we think we would be like?
Right.
maybe
I think that,
or I don't know. I mean, I haven't taught you.
that A push probably falls along the same lines.
Yeah.
Especially since now it is condensed between 1754 to, so you're talking French and Indian
Right.
War to World War II. And we spoke earlier with a couple of the A push teachers, and there seems to be some commonality, some common theme between that and the government exam. Whereas he had sort of the same idea. Take the big ideas that were consistent over the last several years of the exam and focus on taking notes on those ideas first, and then, kind of like umbrelling the
Right.
subtopics. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of commonality there.
Yeah. Phil, how are you going to think about this next period of time with your guys?
Well, can I ask, is there anybody that's taking the AP Lang in this group? AP Lang exam? Because there's certain things that I'm doing that I think might help for some of the other particularly humanities based. And so I'll talk about it anyway, but if there's anybody that's taking AP Lang, I could make some specific recommendations to prepping for that test. I mean, I think the big challenge for my students and for really anybody that's taking a timed writing test is practicing doing the things that we know that Tom was just talking about, the things that we know that work for good analytical writing, having a plan, taking good notes,
outlining,
budgeting your time, and finding a way to adapt that to a 45-minute time session.
Right.
And I think we have some advantages that we're taking it at home right now. If we can plan our training between now and then effectively.
So what do you think? You mean like doing it in the place where you're going to be actually taking the exam, like thinking about like almost like when you take your driver's ed, knowing, like doing it in the car that you're familiar with.
I know that sounds silly, but as a writer and as because I mean, that's why I want to talk about just writing, being evaluated on your writing right now for the various tests that you guys are going to take, where you're writing some kind of open-ended timed writing. A lot of writers have a lot of their work has been, I mean, Joyce Carol Oates, she's got this online class that I keep seeing come up on my YouTube, and she says a lot of people believe that they're that the enemy of writing is a lack of talent, but it's really just not. It's getting interrupted, not finding the right place to write where you can't get interrupted.
Oh, that's funny.
And so I think like a driver's test or like anything else, try to simulate using this time, particularly closer to the test, to find the best place where you can write for 45 minutes. And I actually, and I've talked to different people. I mean, I talked to some of my colleagues about this that have been teaching AP Lang for a while. And like, I was saying, I was asking, what do you think, what are you going to recommend your students have on their desks?
Interesting.
And if they're writing at a desk, what are they going to have on it? And a lot of people said you shouldn't, in 45 minutes, you want to limit your distractions. You don't really want to have too much. And so like, this is going to vary from teacher to teacher, but the thing that I'm having my students practicing, and there's going to be some flexibility for what works best for the student, but besides finding their place to write, we're practicing writing 45-minute time sessions due at the end of each week. They're timing themselves. And for the first 5 minutes, they're writing, they're taking notes and developing a plan. Then beginning with the body paragraph first. Most students, this works well for them, not everybody. And then saving 5 minutes at the end for editing and revising. And so that's pretty general. I'm trying to work with individual students. I encourage any of you guys that are trying to train to try to find a place in a system that works for you. I mean, I guess that's the biggest thing that I would say, to find, to allow yourself right now for the next 2 weeks at least, to find some time to experiment writing in the place that works best for you for this time session, and finding a way to budget that time and allow, like with any kind of writing, even this strange kind of time, 45-minute, failure is a lot of really important in writing training to the point of failure. So allow yourself, if you run out of time, see what made you run out of time. Allow yourself to practice running out of time and why that happened. And talk to your teachers. The College Board has these lectures on YouTube for most of the AP exams, but I've been recommending not requiring my students to check those out. And so these AP Lang teachers and graders of former exams are offering their specific recommendations to their students about how to budget that time, that 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, and that's why I love doing this stuff is like, we're all kind of in the same boat together. And I think that's really interesting. And just trying to adapt really quickly. But the thing that I thought was so interesting, you said, is like, this is moving to a total writing exam, right? So if you're not a confident writer, I mean, maybe that's, for some people, that's really positive, but like, you better spend a lot of time writing in the next 6 weeks, and doing like those specific kinds of, not doing just the 45-minute over and over and over and over again, or whatever it is, but like, really like this whole AP, and if you take 5 or 6 different APs and you're not a confident writer and you're really, maybe we're leaning more on that multiple choice section, I know that's going to be complicated. It's going to be very hard for you. So the other thing too that I thought was interesting that you brought up is kind of like the open note thing. Because, it's interesting you talk about as a writer, like you want that clean space and you want to be able to, do your outline and limit distraction and things like that. But at the same time, like, there is that open note part of it. And I think that's what some teachers are trying to struggle with. Like, how much do you prepare? Like, what do you put on the desk? Is it physical? Is it digital? Can I have another computer open? I was talking to AP Stat teachers today that were, almost creating like answer templates in some ways for like, hey, if it's a t-test question, then I'm like, this is how you describe a t-test. So this is how I'm going to do it. And I'll just plug in the number, so I know that calc, stat, I've heard some teachers talk, but Tom's like, what are you thinking about just that note, like, digital, analog, like Control F, like what do you think about how you're going to, I think preparing the kids with creating notes is a good thing, like just as a teaching tool to begin with, but like, what do you think, what's your first reaction to like what is going to be on the desk or what kids should have ready on the actual exam?
I think for the exam that I'm teaching, so the government exam, but I think this is true for the APUSH exam as well. I think that, obviously articulating points and your delivery is going to be really important, but I think that content is also going to be more important than it might have been in the past. Because sometimes you can get away with that if you are an effective writer and you are effective in terms of delivering your points well. But now you're sort of like on an even playing field where everybody has access to, all these notes and all these outlines. So, I think that really content here is going to be very, very important, for the exam. So, for me, I know it's not a language and comp. So, again, I keep drawing back to this idea of like notes and pounding that home and outline. But I really do think that if you provide, really, really solid evidence and you have really, really sound analysis, that's going to put you over the edge on an exam like this.
So I'm trying to think, like, so I'm taking the APUSH and it's a DBQ. Like, should I have, this is just top of my head. Like, should I have like a list maybe of like the major actors and some, so it's Spanish-American War. So I can just go boop. And I know, okay, here's like maybe the 5 or 6 things that I have to mention. I make sure I have that in detail. And then I just make sure that's like straight in my head. And then I can go and really like spend that time analyzing the documents and show those skills. Is that like, that was just me thinking about experience with the history or the world, even, but what do you think? Does that make sense, Tom?
Absolutely. I think so. Yeah. But then even to take that sort of a step further, what I would do is I would identify some of the key themes that are surrounding. So you use the Spanish-American War as an example. So, maybe you take social Darwinism and you make a contemporary connection, or you make a connection to past history in terms of a pattern, right? Because that's what the College Board wants to see. They want to see that you're able to make those connections to contemporary topics. But even something like social Darwinism that, maybe justifies imperialism, you can talk about the connection between the Spanish-American War, the Gilded Age, and World War I.
So both, just to make it even more complicated for everybody, like both, like the high level notes, like high level themes, right, that you're thinking about that have to be tracked throughout American history, but then also like the detail of, like, is that right? I mean, is that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot. All right. So we said it'd be some Q&A. We've looked at I've been able to look at Tara's beautiful living room, and everybody else has their their videos off, which is fine. But feel free, like, if you guys want to take some time where you can either unmute yourself and ask a question or a suggestion, or if you want to use the chat, anything that has come up. It may just be like, hey, you want to know where some resources are, or you have an idea or anything like that. So I wanted to take some time and just have it be open for everybody else. Take a couple minutes, wait, and then see where we are.
Can also talk about what we're offering.
Oh, that's a good idea, Tara. Okay, I'll fill some.
While we're waiting.
I'll vamp.
There you go.
So I think one of the things we'd like to do with the program, and I hope you guys have gotten something out of today, is just try to make some of the educators we have involved in the program available to you guys in a lot of different ways. So for Phil, that might mean doing some of this writing work, might mean working the college essay. I know he has some webinars coming up with that. But also, if you're interested in, more direct tutoring, maybe doing some of the practice, to be honest, like, I know what we're doing at our school. I have, some communication with what's happening at some other schools, some other private schools, but, you may be very satisfied with the preparation that you're getting from your school. You may not be. You may know people that are not, don't necessarily feel like they're prepared, and they want to really do well. So they show well, with the College Board. So we have not just individual tutoring, but some group tutoring sessions that are available, that can be, a lot of different formats, whether it's kind of going over maybe some of the notes, maybe it's group kind of note taking, maybe it's some of the doing, just working your outlining, like speed outlining, like Phil's talking about, like working the first 5 minutes of an essay. It can really be tailored to what you guys are interested in. And then in addition to that, we have, I think, just some other great academic support, academic supplemental stuff with, whether it's talking about some stress management techniques, which I think we all need right now. I have some stuff on social media that I think is been pretty fun to talk about. And, leadership, public speaking, things like that. So hopefully this is a program that can just be supportive and maybe offer that extra push that you need to, not to use a million sports metaphors, but just like to kind of get it over the goal line for you and make you feel more comfortable. But please, like, either you or your parents or anybody, you can just reach out to Matt, to myself, to any of the tutors individually, and just tell us, like, how we can help. Great. All right. So somebody asked about
that email would be 360@centercourtclub.com.
Cool. 360 at Centercourt. I'll just put that in the chat. All right. So in terms of the AP Science, so One of the things we definitely want to do, I think, is have maybe some math and science, like do a format similar to this, and have some math and science teachers on that can talk to you. They can talk to you directly. But the advice, like looking at the exam right now, I would give a lot of the similar advice that Phil was talking about, in that this has become, a writing exam. So if you are not, like, if you have not drilled some of those skills about data, like looking at data and then being able to analyze it quickly and put it into words and use all the terminology that you're supposed to use, then like those are the skills that are going to be there. Some of the resources that, and this may be like very obvious to you, but I'll just drop it in the chat. Like, just looking at the College Board website, if you haven't, so the YouTube live classes, all right, I'll put that in the chat for everybody. So this is a link to that. And then just bear with me. There's one, just all the AP stuff that, sorry. And then some of the courses that that they made available are taking exams, timing, expected tasks. So if you haven't looked at here, this is their course schedule. So that's what the AP has put out. I think definitely. So we have a teacher that could help you for AP Bio specifically. He's an amazing bio teacher at our school. That could help you with some of that, with some of the AP stuff. His name is Peter O'Connell.
And just to make note, we have a class tomorrow for AP biology. So tomorrow there's AP biology, AP Spanish. Let's see. On Thursday we have AP chemistry, AP government. So that's just this week. But as I said, if you email us, we could find a teacher for you if you need it.
Yeah.
Rob, not to interrupt.
Please.
In addition to the resources that are in the chat, I'm going to add something else. So Khan Academy has actually been working really closely with the College Board in order to identify what units are going to be on the test and specific themes to look at. So in addition to everything that will be on the test, they also have some worked examples from past exams, in addition to a whole section about how the exam is sort of mapped and how the standards are mapped. So I just included that in the chat as well.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Other questions that you guys have? Yeah, so Mike Vigliotti asked a really good question about have they adjusted their material? And the answer is yes. So basically what they chopped off the last quarter, about the last 2 units of, so most of the units are laid out 1 through 9, and a lot of them chopped off like 7, 8, and 9. So it makes for kind of a incomplete exam in some cases, like especially cumulative ones like calc, where like some of the last couple concepts it's cumulative, so it's important. But all that is available on the website. I'm actually just trying to find the link right now, because it is, all that stuff is there on the College Board, and I think most AP teachers are familiar with that kind of stuff. But so we develop secure online. Just see our fact page. But there's like very specific information about what units are affected, or what units are going to be covered, what's not going to be covered, and all that. So I'm going to just try to find it. Phil and Tom, any kind of final thoughts? before we wrap here?
Yeah, I just I don't mean to minimize the how daunting it is to take an exam in this type of situation, much less to take a written exam, whether or not you're a confident writer in 45 minutes. But I do think that everyone that's taking an exam, everyone that's now writing in 45 minutes should be confident that even in the little time that we have between now and the exams, if you practice writing and practice for 45 minutes, writing is something that you can do. And so I think we all know how to write, and it's a matter of practicing writing in this kind of situation in 45 minutes. It's something that we can train ourselves. It's not a marathon. We're training ourselves to write in 45 minutes. I would just encourage you guys, even if in addition to studying any content, to find a way to work in some writing a little bit every day. It doesn't need to be 45 minutes, but set the timer for 10 minutes and see what you can get down, and become comfortable with this idea of you are a writer and you can feel confident in that. It's something you've been doing for a long time.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that, I know that the expectation has changed, but AP has, or the College Board has all of the past exams, so you can sort of see what they're looking for and what the readers are looking for. Because even though the test has changed, the readers have not changed.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I would say, so I mentioned what some of my colleagues said about not having anything on their desks. I would personally, if I was writing this, I would have a graphic organizer with the exam rubric that they're using with some of the things they're like. I know there are a number of good graphic organizers on the College Board's website for AP Lang, what they're looking for in every rhetorical analysis essay, the type of 45-minute essay we're writing. And so I would have that in front of me, even though I should know as a student, I know this by heart, these things, because I've spent so much time with this.
Yeah. And I mean, just to we were talking AP Bio before. I mean, just to look at something like AP Biology, where, I mean, in some ways you're right, the thing has changed, but in some ways it really hasn't, because it's really FRQ question 1 and 4, right? And I know there's history is kind of, it's just basically a DVQ. So if I go to like just Google AP past exam questions, and I just have a ton of those examples, so I'll just put that in the link too, like AP Bio past exam questions. I would read a lot of those, and even to have, a sense of sentence templates or outlines that are basically those, available to me if I get stuck. I mean, and to practice with those available. So I think you got to sort of figure out maybe in the next couple of weeks, well, what's going to work for me? And I think Phil makes a really good point about that. How much do I want to have on the desk? Is that good? Is that going to be good for me? Is that going to be bad for me? And then you want to replicate those scenarios the same way you would, in any kind of like coaching or learning situation. So,
yeah, my guys, I just to add, we're not even in my exam it's a writing class. We're not writing a 45-minute essay every week from now until the exam, but we're reading every past student essay that's available. Yeah. And every 2 weeks we're practicing this. So like we're reading and analyzing every sample so that we're digesting the different ways of approaching this kind of task of writing in 45 minutes. So there's a lot of student samples that are available. We use Albert as well as the College Board, but there's, a lot of free resources, free past written, free response questions online that you guys can all read.
Yeah, I'm going to throw that Albert link in there too, because that's something we use at our school that I think has been helpful. But maybe not everybody has access to AP Classroom, and they have some stuff that they made because of COVID-19 available for free. So that might be a good resource for everybody too. Tara, we forget anything you want to throw out there before we?
No, I think this is great. I mean, I have my senior's taking AP Lit, so, and AP other stuff, but I forget. But that's what you guys cover.
Yeah, good luck.
Really helpful, really helpful.
So good luck, everybody. If again, feel free to reach out to anybody, just if you have like a very specific question, maybe, or if you have kind of a general question, or you want to about the AP, about a single AP, about about our program, and look for.
And I'd also like to shout out for your social media this week. When is that webinar? Is that Thursday?
Thursday at 3:15. We're going to talk about making social media work for you, and just some different things to think about for parents, for kids, about how to think about using social media as a way to bolster your college application process, your really anything, and even beyond professionally. So
yeah, I listened to it last
fun.
week, and it was phenomenal. And so really, if you guys can watch it, or join us, it'll be great.
Great, thank you. All right, great. So I think we'll cut it there. Hope everybody has a great afternoon. Right at 4 o'clock, we're right on time. It's great. Phil and Tom, thank you guys very much for joining us on such short notice. Especially, I think like you get a sense of, you just tell these guys, hey, like, don't prepare and don't just be yourself. And these guys are such thoughtful, awesome educators, and care so much about preparing their students. And so I think they're all great resources for our school, but for this community as well. So I'm gonna
about community.
That's right. All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you guys.
Everybody take care.